From the Toronto Star, I'm Reggie Mudler, and this matters. It is a day that many parents of younger children have been waiting for. The opportunity to book kids aged 5 to 11 for their first vaccine dose is here. This is the largest cohort of people in Canada who remain unvaccinated. And after a long wait through the drug company's press announcements, government approvals, and a lot of talk about plans for getting this age group their shots, the process is getting underway for families across Ontario and Canada. Will it be another hunger for the vaccine games with online booking frenzies and frustrations? Or can parents hope for a smoother experience for the next generation? We have a very early impression and some tips and advice for after booking the jab. Because while vaccines are now here for this age group, so is the practical consideration of dealing with the reality of a sharp needle going into a young kid's arm. Megan Ogilvie is a health reporter at The Star. She joins us to talk about vaccines and kids and what we know now. Megan, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Yes, of course. It's an exciting week for parents.
It really is. So, Megan, this morning, this was the first chance for parents with kids who are 5 to 11 to book their first shot. How was your experience?
Well, I think our experience was quieter than most of my friends. Our health unit hasn't yet opened up the online booking. So we were waiting, but also waiting for us. We know it'll come, but so excited because all morning we were getting pings from friends outside of where we live saying, we're booked, hooray. It's Friday, it's Sunday, it's next week, with all kinds of happy celebratory emojis. So even though I didn't experience it for my kids, I could be happy for all of my friends who've been waiting for this for so long.
So this morning I got on and I saw a tweet and basically it said that it was open early. So around 7:25, I got on there, got my daughter booked, and it was a breeze. And then I immediately became like the Pied Piper of vaccines and started texting people saying, go now, go now. So hopefully I didn't suck any away, but I know my friends also were sending those celebratory messages. But now, okay, let's also be very real for people because obviously there's this mad rush right now. Parents have been waiting for a really long time. And one thing that people really shouldn't be worried about is supply, right?
You're right. Yeah. I think this time around, the anxious wait that many adults that we all experienced back in the spring due to limited vaccine supply, I don't think it'll be an issue for kids. Last Friday, after Health Canada approved the vaccine for kids, we heard from the federal procurement minister who said Canada will receive 2.9 million doses this week, enough for a first shot for all eligible kids. We also know that shipment arrived Sunday, and yesterday, the Ontario Ministry of Health told my colleague Kenyon Wallace that the province has received its first shipment of more than 400,000 doses. So I think we should hope that any family who wants a vaccine for their young kids can get it in the coming weeks.
Now, here's the thing. I'm hearing from a lot of parents that they're going to take a little bit of a wait and see approach with this, even though that many of them are already vaccinated. I'll be honest, I think this is nuts. But what are health professionals advising about this?
Yeah, I'm hearing the same thing from some of my friends too. And I think, it comes from parents wanting to make the right choice for their kids, and they don't really want to be first in line in case something bad happens. But every health professional I've spoken with says right now, the risks of waiting outweigh the known benefits of the vaccine. And if you look at the case numbers every day, we know that COVID is still slowly rising in Ontario. It's not gone away. And I think parents should really think about that. Recently, younger children represent the age group with the highest infection rates in the country. And so, while children are less likely than adults to get really sick, some do get acutely ill. And in my job, I'm lucky enough to speak to the experts directly. And back in October, when we knew the vaccines were coming, Dr. Upton Allen, who's the chief of infectious diseases at Sick Kids, or the Hospital for Sick Children, said something that really stuck with me. This vaccine, the kid-sized vaccine for COVID, protects against the initial or acute illness from COVID, but it also protects against these post-COVID syndromes like long COVID or the rare multi-system inflammatory syndrome in kids. So if you think of the vaccine, you're getting 3 for 1 against COVID and then these other 2 syndromes. Plus, the way that I also think about the vaccine, and I know experts do too, it's letting your kids get back to being a kid, indoor play dates, birthday parties, staying in school, and hanging out with friends and family that maybe they haven't had a chance to for a bunch of time.
Listen, as a parent, I feel super bad for what children have gone through the last 2 years. Listen, it sucked for us, but for them even more so. So I absolutely think that. But okay, the dosage for this age group is a third of what adults get. But one of the weird things out there was this sort of discrepancy between the second shot. I believe I read that the drug companies advised for about 3 or 4 weeks, but NACI says 8 weeks. What is that happening there? And more importantly, what is Ontario going by?
Yeah. First, I want to say that I think it's important to not think of that as a discrepancy. So the drug companies in Health Canada play a different role than NACI, or the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. So based on data that Pfizer submitted to Health Canada, the regulatory agency said giving 2 pediatric doses 3 weeks apart is safe and effective. And that's really important. We know that that's safe and effective. But then NACI reviews the same data and evidence on pediatric doses. And then they look at data and evidence for COVID in teens and adults. And they come out with recommendations sort of on this real world experience. And they say that studies of adults who received the COVID vaccine suggest that the longer interval between the first and second doses produces not only a stronger immune response, but it helps the vaccine last longer, like it's more effective. And so it's looking at that real world data that NACI came to the recommendation of the 8-week interval. And the question you asked me is what we've posed to experts. And Dr. Julia Orkin, who's a pediatrician at Sick Kids, told my colleague May Warren that the literature, like the evidence suggests the longer the interval between doses, the better immune response you get, and there's a lower likelihood of side effects. So we've got Health Canada saying that this is the short interval is safe and effective, and then the body that makes the recommendations for health professionals and Canadians saying the longer interval is going to be better for you.
Well, all I'll say is that a 3-week interval would have been really nice, because then this could have been done by Christmas, which would have been a really nice present for the whole family. But I'm just happy things are getting going for this age group. Let's talk about side effects. Is there anything parents should be concerned about?
Well, yeah, and that's a question my kids have asked me, because after my 2 COVID vaccines earlier in the year, they saw me huddled on the couch with the blanket, sort of dragging around, feeling really crummy for a day or two. But I'm really happy to tell them that the data shows, like, not only are there no serious side effects reported related to the vaccine in kids right now, but there are also a few minor side effects as well. So just like the flu vaccine, kids might have a sore arm after they get their COVID shot, maybe a headache, but reassuringly, the data shows kids will be just fine. And even the serious side effects that we really worry about as parents, the data that Pfizer submitted to the FDA and Health Canada shows that there was no incidences of serious side effects. I also wanted to say that, more on a serious note, that since the US is ahead of Canada by a few weeks on giving doses to kids, we as Canadians have that real world data to go by. So right now, about 3 million doses have been given to US kids between the ages of 5 and 11. And to date, no serious side effects have been reported. So I think that's reassuring to worried parents and kids too.
Megan, I think you're also missing a teachable moment there, because that's a vaccine hangover. So you can tell the children that's what a hangover is like. Stay away from the booze. Now, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. Okay, I do want to touch on a few of the other ones that people have been talking about, myocarditis and some other heart inflammations. Any information on that? I mean, I actually have a friend his child does have a heart issue, so he is talking to his doctor to see if there is anything there. Do we have any information on that?
Yes, no, for sure. There is data on that, and it is reassuring. On Friday, when Health Canada announced its approval for the kid-sized dose, the chief medical advisor to the Deputy Minister of Health said that there was no incidences of myocarditis or pericarditis in the Pfizer's vaccine trial for kids 5 to 11. And she also noted that the risk of myocarditis with COVID is about 20 times higher than with the vaccine. And so when we're thinking about these serious side effects, it's really a risk-benefit analysis. And every health professional and regulatory body says the benefits of the vaccine outweigh any potential side effects.
We'll be right back. The other thing that's happening right now is it's flu season. And so it's time to get kids and people their flu shots. What's the recommendation there? Because I do think that now you've got to juggle sort of 2 things, right?
Yeah, no, exactly right. Our family is very pro-flu vaccine, and we went about 2 weeks ago as a family to go and then grabbed burgers and fries after. And so every year, doctors and health officials are recommending people get their flu shots, and it's available for anyone over the age of 6 months. And that, it's definitely okay to get the flu shot around the same time as the COVID vaccine. Interestingly, when Health Canada announced their approval last week, one of the recommendations is for children is not to get any other vaccine 2 weeks on either side of their COVID vaccine. And it's not because they could interact in a weird or scary way. It's because they want to know if there is any side effect to either vaccine, the flu vaccine or the COVID vaccine, they know which side effect it's linked to.
Okay, let's talk about rollout plans. There was talk of in-school vaccinations, but in Toronto, they're using clinics.
Yes.
What's the thinking on that?
Yeah, so I think the rollout plans have been in the works for weeks. The public health officials I've been in touch to have been planning for kids for a long time and just waiting to get their hands on the vaccines. But you're right. What we know now is that the first kids will likely be in city-run clinics, like so in Toronto, the Metro Toronto Convention Center. But they've also said that they will be adding in school clinics and mobile clinics into the community. For schools, we know that Toronto Public Health has prioritized 30 high-risk neighborhoods for their first school clinics, and these include schools in Flemington Park, Melbourne, and Thorncliffe Park. But Toronto Public Health has said more information on schools will be coming this week to parents, but they have partnered with the city's 4 public school boards.
So you recently just wrote about Peel, and it's really interesting because we heard so much about Peel and how poorly it was doing. Some really interesting things have happened there, but also they're trying to do a lot to make this easier for kids. Can you talk a little bit about what's happening there?
Yeah, I've written a lot about Peel region through the pandemic, and almost always, especially in the second and third wave, it was about how COVID was just ravaging the community. Infection rates were high, hospitals were overwhelmed, and there was a real sense that, well, we knew that residents in that city were getting sick with COVID at really high rates, and it was incredibly sad. Through the summer, Peel Public Health has done a really strong job of getting vaccines out to their adults and teens. And right now they have, I think the last time I checked, 85% of their population that's eligible is fully vaxxed. And they have a lower COVID infection rate than many other public health units in the province. So Peel has turned around. And I think talking to public health officials there, they're going to draw on the same strategies that worked for teens and adults with kids. So getting a COVID vaccine like as easy as possible. They'll have their city-run clinics, but they really are also going to go out into the community, use their schools and mobile clinics, partner with community centers and places of worship to lower any barrier for parents to take their kids to get vaccines. Plus, like so many other public health units, they want kids to feel like superheroes. So they've also gone with that superhero theme to make kids feel not like happy to get the vaccine, at least okay with going and getting a special Band-Aid and sticker and coloring activities.
They also called in Brampton Batman. Come on, that was cool.
Yeah, they did. If you saw anywhere on social media, Dr. Lawrence Lowe was zooming around Brampton in the Batmobile with the Caped Crusader. I don't know if my young kid would have found that, he looked kind of scary, but Brampton Batman wanted everyone to know that he's vaccinated, apparently, and that he encourages everyone to get the shots to protect their community.
Listen, Batman's always on the case. Megan, I think the thing with this is that obviously for a lot of parents, this has been a real concern. We've been waiting this, but now it actually becomes a super practical thing. And show me a child that actually likes to get a needle. This is going to be one of the big issues for all the families actually booking this. What do you think about that? Is there any practical advice that we can give them, particularly on just the needle front?
Yeah, you're right. It's totally top of mind for parents. And so much so that was the story I wrote yesterday and is in today's paper. The vaccines are here, the approvals happened, you've made your appointment, but now you've got to get your kid in the car or down onto the streetcar or walk down into your school to get the vaccine. And so how can you make that easier for them? I talked to a child life specialist from Humber River Hospital, and she had actually really great tips on how to make it easier for their younger kids. So quickly, some of them are to be open and honest with your kid about what's going to happen and to use simple and straightforward language. So something even as simple as we're going to a vaccine clinic, you're going to get a vaccine into your arm, and it's going to protect you from COVID-19. For younger kids, that might be all that they need to know. And she advised that too many details can actually be overwhelming for young kids. She recommended not using words like needle or shot because she mentioned that kids think in really concrete ways, and those words could be scary or threatening to them. She said that it's important to acknowledge your child's fear, let them know that lots of grownups are also scared and nervous and not to feel bad about that. And that you can have these feelings of being scared and worried and nervous, but still do something that you don't want to do and be brave about it. And that builds resiliency. She said, if your kid wants to take a stuffed animal or their little superhero toy or blanket, let them do that. She actually also said a very practical thing is to take an ice pack and put it on their arm about a couple minutes before the shot to numb the area. That can be a really good tool for some families. And then, after, you can use positive language. And, she said it's not a bribe or reward, but to have a fun, positive experience after.
I'm all about bribes and rewards.
Well, I think lots of parents use those words, but she was very careful to say it's like positive reinforcement. But in any way you want to use, like whatever words you use, go for ice cream, watch a movie together, go to the park, like whatever your kid wants to do, make sure there's something fun for them to look forward to after. Like we've got COVID shots, but anyone with young kids have been dragging their kids to testing centers for the last year and a half. We always go for ice cream after the nose swab. Like no matter what else is happening, we'll get a drive-through ice cream after.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Listen, the reward mentality, there'd be fast food, there'd be something after it is definitely going to happen. I know that. Megan, that's great advice. Is there any other advice for parents that you want to give? I mean, the one that I would also give is just parents look to you for advice. And it's funny, my daughter doesn't like needles, but both of my vaccine shots were, I barely felt it. And I came home and I said that. And I actually didn't have a vaccine hangover at all. So my kid remembers that. And so she's actually got a pretty positive attitude toward this going in. Now we'll see what happens when she actually gets jabbed.
Yeah, same here. I'd say that's a question that I ask the experts when I speak to them, and they always say the same thing, which is if you have questions or worries, talk to your own healthcare provider. And they know that these one-on-one conversations with trusted sources help. Like some hospitals and public health units are letting you call and talk to a nurse or a doctor if you just call someone up on the phone and ask your questions. And the doctors say they're welcome questions. Questions mean that parents are trying to do the best for their kids and not to feel reluctant about asking such questions. This is what you should be doing as a parent.
Megan, this has been fantastic for us. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you great luck when your public health unit opens up so you can get your kids booked as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're all looking forward to it.
Megan Ogilvie is a health reporter at The Star. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Raju Mudler. Our This Matters team is Adrian Chung, Brian Bradley, JP Fozo, Matt Hearn, Morgan Bachneck, Saba Etizaz, and Sean Pattenden. Our music is by So-Called, Mike DeAngelis, and Sean Pattenden. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com/subscribingmatters. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.